Hi, this is Sven Dirkschneider from U.D.O, and you are listening to the Dan Chen Show.
Sven, how the hell are you somewhere near Cologne? How's things?
Pretty good so far. Enjoying the last summer days, apparently, even though it's officially it's already fall. But it's super hot here in Germany, so it's all good.
Yes, we've had a good summer in general. So I want to get into it because I know you've got a lot of time. So you guys have just released the new one, Touchdown. Let's get into the mechanics of this album. First off, how's the response been to this? It's a great album. It's a great album.
Yeah. Thank you very much, first of all. And the feedback and the responses are amazing. We are super overwhelmed. The press loved it from the first listening session that we did. Fans are super excited about this one, apparently. And obviously we did something right with this one. And we really appreciate it and appreciate the support that we get from the fans worldwide. We had amazing chart entries, best ones so far for U.D.O. So, as I said, apparently we did something right with Touchdown.
Awesome. And do you go looking for reactions, comments, or do you just wait for them to come to you? Do you go scouting on YouTube, looking at video comments, or do you just avoid that?
No, I'm personally, I avoid that. Like, personally, I would even say that once the album is done, I won't listen to it anymore, because you listen to it so many times that if you go back to it, after it's done, you go, we should have done this. It's a never ending process. So personally, I just stick to my rule. Like, once it's done, it's done. And I don't go scouting for comments, but you do get a lot of messages, of course, from people. So, you won't ignore those. And you want to appreciate the fans and thank them for their support. So, no, not scouting, I would say, but you definitely get a feel and you see how the people react to it.
Yeah. How was the recording of this album? How long has it been in the can for?
We started pretty much right after the last one, to be honest. It was still COVID times.
Yeah, of course.
Excuse me. So, there was nothing going on touring wise. So we wouldn't go on tour. Were no festivals. So we pretty much went back into the studio, and wrote new material, and it was going pretty well. And then certain things, we had to stop several times. We had a big flood here in Germany in 2021, and I was affected by it. So my studio got completely vanished that night, and we didn't have a place to work. And that was the first time we had to stop, and then slowly got into the process once I found a new place or a space to work. And then, unfortunately, the war between Russia and Ukraine started, and Andrei was living in Ukraine with his family at that time. So we had to stop again, obviously, because, we were just waiting for answers from him or to get a message that he's still alive. So that was very, very heartbreaking situation. And then we stopped the whole process until he was feeling well enough again to go through it, and start writing new material. It took us some time, but in the end, I must say that personally, I think all these very unfortunate events took us where we are right now. That's why the album came out so strong, because we had a lot of emotional material that we wanted to write about, that touched us over the years and will touch us forever. It's very important topics, that we think that we captured with this album as well. And also musically, it was, just a very aggressive, ongoing process of writing, because we always thought like, okay, COVID is nearly over. Hopefully we can go back on tour. No, still not happening. Then the flood, then the war, and all these events, took us to a different level of writing music, I guess.
So what's the lyrical themes behind that? How did that bleed into? Having all that time, did it give you more time to, as you said, you don't like to go back, you don't like to listen to it because you think what you could have perfected, but this must have given you more time to perfect things and craft the album as good as it is. And what are the lyrical themes behind the album?
First of all, we covered, like, for instance, there's the song "The Flood," where I try to write down what I experienced during that night.
Yeah.
Not personally too much what I myself happened at my place, but just in general. The whole area here was affected, and there are some very, very sad sad stories, from families who lost people that night, or their complete house just went,
Yeah, it's awful.
I mean, it was very, very horrible. And I try to, therapy myself a little bit with that one. And then, for instance, there's Fight for the Right, which is about the war in Ukraine. And we don't want to point at anyone, but we just want to make clear that we condemn war. Doesn't matter which war, all the wars which are going on worldwide are stupid. And if we would just, try a little bit more and put more effort into it, we believe that war is not a necessary thing,
of course.
And that was one topic. Then Isolation Man was about the pandemic, of course, For instance, my dad, obviously he's living on his own. I mean, he has a girlfriend and stuff, but people who were at home for month and month and month, or people who live on their own and they want to get to know new people, to get into a relationship and stuff like that. And everything, all of this was not possible. And we try to, look into their minds, out of our perspective a little bit. And these are some topics, on that album that touched us, over the years, just to name a few. So yeah, I mean, we had some time, and then, these lyrics came out. Yeah.
Do you live near your father?
Sorry, no. Now, yes. He used to live in Ibiza in Spain for almost 13 years. So during that time, obviously, we didn't see each other too much off touring. But now he's living 100 kilometers away from me, which is in Wuppertal, back to the roots, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do have the chance to see each other more often.
That's nice.
And we work together a lot.
Of course.
We do write the melodies together, all the vocal stuff we do together. So this is like very, very easy going now that he can just drive to my place and we start working.
Well, I was going to ask, what's your dad's routine like in the studio? Is he a slave driver, or is he more laid back after all these years? What's he like?
It's very interesting to work with him, I would say, in a way that he is so experienced when it comes to studio work or writing.
How many albums now? It's like, I've lost count.
19. I mean, with U.D.O. So, I mean,
except stuff.
So it's a huge history. It's a huge catalog, and he definitely knows what he's doing. That's for sure. But, he's not shy, or no other way. He's not, he didn't lose his interest, and I'm younger, obviously. So I go in there fresh and naive a little bit and just say, hey, go and try it, go and try. It's like, nah, you think so? I'm not sure. And I'm like, just go for it, why not? And he doesn't say no. So he goes in, he tries, and then suddenly we have The Betrayer. When we listened to the demo first, I was never ever expecting to have this song on the album in the end, because I thought, oh God, that's way too hard for U.D.O. and can we really do that, and blah, blah. And I didn't know what to expect from his voice, but I think it's killer, because he just went in there, he came out, and he felt super happy and satisfied, and, just like, oh, it's working. And that was one of the songs where he initially said, are you sure that I should try this one? And I was like, yeah, do it, and so he did. And that's what I really love about him, that he's still interested in
discovering new ways and stuff.
Discovering new ways of using his voice.
Brilliant. And
that's
awesome.
It's really awesome. And then, of course, when I get super excited about things, he goes like, yeah, just calm down a little bit and get the spray. So that's definitely where you can feel his experience, when it comes to studio work. But yeah, Brilliant. It's great to work with him. I love it.
Brilliant. Now, from the opener, Isolation Man, the drums sound shit hot, mate. I'm a drummer myself. What an intro that is. How do you approach the studio for recording? What's the mindset? You've done 4 albums now with U.D.O. now. Is that correct? How do you approach the studio?
Usually, last couple of albums, I try to be as prepared as possible. So I lock myself into my little, like when I still had it, into my own studio, or my little practice pad or practice kit that I have, and I try to get the stuff in my head as good as possible. With this one, we had a little bit of a different approach. We just said, just go in there and play, and we see what feels good. And that was a really, really good, I think was a key move that we did there, because we tried so many grooves for different songs, even though we had grooves, obviously, underneath the demos, there's always like some sort of drum beat going, and you already get an idea. But then once you sit behind the drum kit, it suddenly feels different. Sometimes, sometimes it fits right away. And then sometimes you feel, no, that could be a bit different. And then you try things out, and that was awesome. So I got together with Stefan Kaufmann again, and I must say that they did, Mathis and Stefan, they did a fantastic job on the sound.
It's great.
I'm so happy with it, what they achieved to do there. And then we got together and we discussed it, and then in the end we came to like one thing that we wanted to do. And I just went in fresh most of the time and just played it. And that's the outcome. So I'm really happy with it. And I think personally that you can definitely hear that on the album as well.
Yeah, it sounds great, mate. It sounds really good. Now I want to go back in time a little bit. You joined the band in 2015. How did it happen? Did your dad have you like training in the wings and decided one day you were all ready? How did you get into drums? How did you become, the drummer of U.D.O? And tell us a little bit about your history. Cause I believe you played with Saxon as well.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, I started playing when I was 5. So I've been playing my whole life. And then I was having my first.
Why drums? Why drums, Sven?
Stupid thing. I think for Christmas in 96, I got a little ukulele and bongos. And Fitty, the former bass player of U.D.O, he was there with his family. And, he took the guitar, the ukulele. And so I ended up with the bongos, and then I did like a completely mistaken count in. I started hitting the bongos, and it was sort of in time, for what it could be at that time. And that was the point where my parents said, let's give it a try. Let's try to put him in music school as soon as possible. But they never forced me to do. That was the really good thing, and that's what I really appreciate.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I ended up being in the music school at the age of 5.
Wow.
Ever since, I never stopped playing. And then I was playing in a church choir and stuff like that. I got to play with other people. And then I formed my own first band, which was called Damaged. And first of all, we did some cover songs, and then we ended up to write some our own material, which you can still find on YouTube, which I personally think is great stuff. And I would have loved to continue with that. But I mean, as you grow up and you go into your teenage years and stuff, people, they lose the interest of learning and playing an instrument. So most of the people I played with back in the days, they stopped completely. And then I was doing my apprenticeship, like usual thing. I finished school, did my apprenticeship, but during all of that time, I was already working as a drum tech occasionally here and there,
Yeah.
And of course, I got to know a lot of people, and I ended up teching for Nigel Glockler, from Saxon.
Yeah.
And we were on tour in 2014, I believe. And he got sick on that tour, and we had to stop in the UK. So the last 5 shows were in the air, and nobody knew what was going on. So I go home and I don't think about anything, and I suddenly get a call from Biff, and he asked me if I could do the rescheduled shows in February. And I was completely blown away by that time. I never expected him to call me. I mean, there's so many amazing and good drummers out there. So I don't think about that at that time, that he would call me and ask if I could play. So yeah. And during that same time, my dad was, on that tour. He was visiting us in Berlin and talked to Biff, and he said, I might have to look for a new drummer for next year. Mm-hmm. And Biff goes, why don't you take your son? I see him play every day doing sound check, and he's doing great. So why don't you think about that? So I get both of those calls within 2 weeks or something. So Biff asked me if I could play with them in February, and my dad is calling me and asking if I would like to join the band.
Wow.
So I end up with like 56 songs on my set list, and had to learn all of these. So, and I think for the decision I had to make with my dad, it took me almost a week and a half until I had decided that I want to do it. Because I knew already that if I say yes, then that's my path for hopefully the rest of my life. And yeah, I did say yes, and it went all great. I played the shows with Saxon in February. We went on the European tour with U.D.O in March 2015. And ever since, I think personally that I developed a lot, with my playing and with my, character on stage and stuff like that. But yeah, I was super nervous when I started all this. It was
I was going to say, was it stressful at all? And, was there any doubt in your mind where you thought, I don't want to do this. It's not for me. Surely most people would think it would be a shoe-in to play with your father, but also you had some doubts.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I mean, Francesco, the drummer who played before me in U.D.O, he's a fantastic drummer, and I looked up to him so much. I learned from him a lot because I was teching for him as well, and I still love him to death. He's such a great guy and such a good musician, powerful drumming. I love it. So that was my biggest concern, what do people think? And of course, like now being in the band for 8 years, I totally see myself that like I developed a lot. When I look back to the videos on YouTube 2015, I think, oh God, what did you do there? It's like, oh God. But I think that's pretty normal, I think that's for everyone in the end, that you look back and it's like, oh God, how did I look, or how did I play, what did I do, and blah blah blah. But yeah, of course I had a lot of concerns. It's a big
undertaking, for sure.
Big footprint that you go in, it's like a lot of pressure. What do the people think, but it was all going great. And nowadays we are such a strong team, when it comes to everything, basically, that I really appreciate that I did it, and said yes back in the day.
For sure. Now, do you think you would have found music if your dad wasn't who he is?
Probably yes. I would say yes, because I definitely been a musical guy since the early days, and I found my bass back in the day, like when as I said, I played in a church choir and stuff like that. So and that was a great experience, I loved that. To play to a conductor and stuff like that. The experience was awesome. And I still have a lot of friends from back in the days. They slowly grab their instruments now again, because now there's the time where they think, oh, now I have some time, what do I do? I love to play guitar, and I love to play bass, and I love to play in the band. But now I don't have the time to go back into the rehearsal room and play with them, because I'm so busy with doing what I do at the moment,
I understand.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure that I would have done something, at least in the music industry, if I wouldn't become a musician myself, I definitely would have done something in the music industry for sure.
Sure. Now I've got to ask this one as well. At what age did you start realizing your dad was who he is? As somebody or something. What age was it when you started thinking, oh, a minute, my dad's like got crowds watching him and stuff like that?
I would say that the typical age for that is when you go to school and everyone starts to ask each other, what does your dad do for a living? That's the typical question. Everyone goes like, oh, my dad's working at the bank, or he's I don't know, a dentist or whatever.
Yeah.
And you go, yeah, my dad is a singer, it's like, and then the first question is, oh, is that a job? And then you go, yeah, but he's singing in a heavy metal band, and then everyone was like, ooh, whoa, hang on a minute, and they can't believe that this is an existing job where you can make a living out of it, and so yeah, I mean, that was probably the time when I realized, okay, their mindset of that is different than mine, because for me it's normal, I mean, like, he was doing that forever, so I didn't know it any other way. He was not like a dreamer when I was growing up who said one day, no, the career was already there. Grew up with that scenario. So yeah, I think that's the age of maybe 8 to 9, something like that. When you really start thinking about that. But as I said, I mean, for me, it was always normal, and I went to shows nearly every weekend, and that was sort of like visiting friends of my dad. And then you end up behind Mickey D's kit and you just sit behind it and
Nice.
you watch him play during the show. You sit behind it and you don't think too much about it. For me, it was just like, yeah, we went to a show. Fine, you know?
Yeah.
And then when I grew up and I was older, I was like, oh, wow. I mean, you know, like imagine someone else who's like a huge Motorhead fan, you know, could have experienced that. They would probably, I don't know, cut their arm off or whatever to do that, you know? And when you realize, oh, that was something very special and you just really start to appreciate, what you did back in the day, you know? And I'm still good friends with Mickey D, and when we play the same festival, or he was at Sweden Rock this year, and we had a really good chat, and he comes out when we play in Gothenburg and visits. So it's really cool that they still remember you, and now they, you know, they shake your hand and they say, hey, you're a fucking good drummer, and that is honor, you know, that is pure honor. If you talk the same high level, that's, I mean, yeah,
that's pretty cool.
More hits, basically, you know. So it's really, really cool and interesting in the end. Yeah.
So what's the best thing about playing music with your father?
Just enjoying time together, to be very honest. I mean, the time that we didn't have back in the day, when he was gone so much, when he was touring, that's the coolest thing ever, you know. And I never thought that we're going to experience, or we're going to spend so many days on the road together having fun. And of course, there's sometimes discussions, and sometimes we shout at each other, you know, which is super normal, I think. And we do have different opinions sometimes, and we discuss things, you know. But the cool thing is about this band that everyone is so open-minded. I mean, imagine when I joined as the Son in 2015, everyone else was a bit like, you know, no. Now the Son is joining the band, you know, what do we do? Everyone was so open-minded about it that I really appreciate everyone. But that comes from the thing that this band, including the crew, is more like a family, you know. We know each other for so long. They know me since I'm a little child, and there's barely like a person leaving the band. I mean, of course, we had changing musicians over the past couple of years to find the right setup, what we have now. But yeah, I mean, all in all, it's always been the same people around this band. Really appreciate that they welcomed me so much back in the day. And when he turns around and he looks at me on stage, it gives me chills still. And I believe that it is the same for him too.
Okay, yin and yang, the worst thing about being in the band with your dad?
That you sometimes, especially when I joined the first year there, I always had the thought like, oh God, you know, it's like living at home. You know, you have to tell him where to go and what you do, you know, and don't drink too much and blah, blah, blah. So that was definitely the worst, but that obviously went after a couple of years, you know. That was, the first couple of years, that was like really weird, you know. It's like, oh God, it's like living in the
he's looking at you. He's watching you.
Yeah. So,
who's he hanging out with? What's he drinking? That's too strong, son. Too many drinks. Get to bed.
Yeah, exactly. So that was definitely the worst.
So back to the album and thinking of the album title and the photo shoot, you know, Touchdown. Are you an American football fan?
I am a fan for sure. Not too much into it.
Who's your team? Who's your team, Sven?
I can't really decide, but probably the Steelers. I like a lot.
Yeah, they lost last night.
I know.
I'm a Bears fan. I'm a long-suffering Chicago Bears fan. So when I saw your album sleeve, I was like, oh my God, we can't be talking American football because it's just too bad. So finally, what one track from Touchdown should I play next and why?
I would say play Fight for the Right, because this is, I think, the strongest message that we can throw out in this fucked up world right now. And we need to stop war and make more love and peace on this planet. So that's probably the most fitting at this time.
Very cool and a great sentiment. Sven, thanks for joining me on the show tonight. I really appreciate it. Good luck with the album and the tours to follow.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.